Rugby Hive is proud to feature people who are passionate about what they do and make a massive difference in the sport of rugby. It's such a pleasure to have you on the chat, Daliah Hurwitz. You're one of the busiest guests we've tried to book. We mentioned Brian Abban and his busy schedule, but I think you've got him beat.
We sometimes bump into each other in airports, so I understand what you're saying, for sure.
Oh, goodness. Well, listen, let's talk about, your role in rugby. Tell us more about that. And we know you had such a busy year last year.
What I do for a living is basically I'm a sports massage therapist. And most of your big teams, especially your rugby teams, have one of me around. They might call it a manual therapist or a masseuse, but basically what we are prevention and maintenance specialists. And if I could have a sign on the door, that would be what it would say. So I'm responsible for making sure there are as little soft tissue injuries as possible. So that's what we do through the season with rugby. So that's, in a nutshell, what I've been doing for 23 years, but since 2018 with the Eagles in America.
Yeah, talk a bit about that. So how did you get set up with the US team and how did you find working with the American athletes?
Well, I joined a company called Wintergreen in 2018 as kind of their in-house sports massage therapist. And their aim is to basically look after an athlete holistically. So the before, the during, and the after. And because of my experience, I could kind of help them build up a range. And they came on board with USA Rugby in 2018 as their sponsor, and now to the MLR as well. They're their sponsor as well. And what we've done is kind of begun to look after the players and kind of get them to be aware of the different things that they can do to help their bodies and help their player welfare during competitions as well as outside of competition time. So, working with the USA team has been fabulous. I mean, I come from a rugby background. I was with the Springboks for a very long time. So obviously being South African, it's a religion in the country. And we want to make it something that American viewers and fans really want to come and see. So I'd say we're still building towards that. But we have a team that is so passionate and so hungry and love the game of rugby and just want to share it with more people. And I think it's beginning to start. And I mean, we're seeing it in the MLR and a little bit with USA Rugby, but these guys they're a mix. It's kind of a mix of players. We've got Americans, we've got some Irish Americans, some Ireland guys, a couple of South Africans, one or two Kiwis. So it's a melting pot, but they all know a little bit about rugby, a little bit about football. Most of them grew up playing football. So they're learning and they're growing and they just want to grow the game of rugby in America.
Dals, it sounds amazing. And I want to touch on the fact as well, which is very rare in 15s. You didn't have a single soft tissue injury over the 9-week tour. Now, how did you achieve that? Because again, people have been injured getting out of bed, no less playing contact rugby.
No, very, very good point, especially 15s, all the collisions. That I'd say is probably something I'm the most proud of our medical team about. And I mean, I'm lucky I work with a fantastic physio or a trainer, as they're known as there. And we have a fantastic conditioning coach, and we have doctors that kind of rotate, that come into our team, that know us quite well, and a coach that's very focused on player welfare, which is something I appreciate as a sports massage therapist. And as I said, we want to look after an athlete holistically. So Wintergreen has kind of put together a range where you look after an athlete before, during, and after, which means in the preparation stage and the warm-ups, we have certain products that I would warm the guys up with before a training session or before a game, and that would be your heating agents, and that's to help prevent those soft tissue injuries from happening, help them be a little bit less stiff and more flexible. And I probably got I think when we started, it must have been about 3 or 4 guys coming before a session, and now I can honestly say it's about 14 or 15 guys before a game or a session. So they're very professional. They realize what works, so it does help them. And then obviously on the field, the physios carry their magic spray with them, or our ice spray, and things that help in crisis management, which we knew would be important. You have things like cramping. So we've worked on a range that works with magnesium to help prevent cramping and muscle fatigue, things like that help kind of prevent things that don't need to happen on the field. And then what we've really, really concentrated on is the recovery side of it, the recovery and the maintenance. So whereas before I might have had to tell a guy, we need to have a massage, or you need to maybe do a soak in a magnesium or like Epsom salt bath, they are so on the ball now. They know their recovery protocols. So they will come to me for a massage during the week. They have to have at least 2 in a week. And then they know they've got the soaks, the magnesium soaks on the table, and they can just come and grab one. And they do that like 2 to 3 times a week. So they're very good at their recovery protocol now. And I think you're beginning to see It's not a short-term thing. They've been doing this for a while now, and it's paying off, which is fabulous. And they're also not a team that's afraid to tell you if there's something, maybe they've got a little bit of a niggle that's irritating them. They'll come to us, they'll be honest, they'll say something's not right. We'll work on them between myself and the physio, and it gets them out onto the field again faster, whereas maybe they would have injured themselves if they just kept it to themselves. So a very professional team that want to be on the field, and that's what we want for them.
Yeah, that's so great because you guys provide the platform for that. You provide the products as well, which is so great. I remember when I was playing, that's the thing. You wanted to be fit. You wanted to be on the field the whole time. You didn't want to be out with any injury. Now, be honest, Coach Gary Gold, does he come in for sessions as well?
He is someone who did play rugby, so he has those old niggles, and he does like to suck. Yes, I will say he preaches with his players. He does have a session or two as well. So do some of the other coaches as well. So they do practice what they preach.
I like it. Okay, now tell us your favorite Wintergreen product while you're working on the players. What do you use the most?
That's like picking your children. But I do love, there's two that I'd say that I have all of them with me, but there's something called menthol hot gel, and that is almost like a bridging product. I call it a hot and cold therapy in a tube because it's got a certain amount of menthol and wintergreen in it. And what wintergreen basically is it's an anti-inflammatory plant. So they call it nature's own cortisone, which is wonderful. And the menthol in it also helps to kind of numb pain on the skin. So the amount that's in a product will depend on whether the body goes hot or cold. So if someone has a massage with me, afterwards I'll maybe put it on their body and it's nice and refreshing. It smells very fresh and it just helps with the stiffness. But if I actually work with it quite hard, it helps to release spasms as well. So I'd say that's probably my multitasking favorite. But with all the niggles and joints and, after a couple of collisions, I also have a joint support spray, which tends to go on before, during, and after sessions. So that you literally just give a good spray and spray on the knees, the lower back, the ankles. And it's also nice because it's hygienic. I mean, the guys can do it themselves. When you're sweaty, you can do it. So yeah, I'd say those are probably two that I use most. Although I use everything, but yeah. Most.
Yeah, I was going to say the bag of goodies you got is just amazing, the range. And personally, do you prefer a product, do you use the Epsom salt bath? Because obviously you're the one giving all the massages and helping the staff. Nobody helps you, I bet.
I do try when I can, I must say, but I do. We've got two soaps. We've got the magnesium soap, which is very similar to the Epsom salt bath, but it's kind of got extra magnesium chloride in it, which helps the bones, the nervous system, helps you to sleep, which is also quite nice, besides working on the stiffness, and helping you to prevent DOMS. What our guys have started to do as well, though, is we've got another soak called hot mustard soak. And that one heats the body up, so you sweat out a lot of those toxins. And the guys have started to put them in their baths together, and that they call the bomb. So they've kind of they've maximized it. They found their own way of doing it, and it really does help. So I've kind of tried that as well now, and it really does help. And they actually brought that to our attention, which is fabulous that they're finding ways to improve their recovery. So yes, so to answer your question, yes, I do. I have my baths. I like to lie in the bath, but that never really happens. But what's quite sweet in a lot of the places we stay in, there are only showers. But in a lot of what the guys will do in the hotels, if some of them have a bath, they'll put it on our group and say, my room has a bath, and then guys will book a slot and they can come and use the bath. So that's quite special.
Very creative rugby players. I like that they mixed the two products together too to form something new. So that's really cool, Dals, listen, while we have you, I want to touch on a couple other interesting questions I have for you is, how did you get started in your career? Is it something you've always been interested in? I know growing up in South Africa, it's a sport mad culture, but how did you find your path there?
I grew up with a rugby coach. So I used to get dragged to rugby training when I was a little kid, and somewhere in it, I started to love it, and it's in my blood. So I grew up with rugby next to a rugby field, and I also used to massage a lot. I just used to do it out of my own. And when I got old enough to kind of understand, I realized that's something I wanted to study, but I wanted to bring the two together, which 23 years ago wasn't a very normal thing to do, but that's what I wanted to do. And I did. I studied all the holistic therapies, the complementary health, and while I was studying, I went to Loftus, spoke to their physios, the Bulls physios and doctors, and I used to go help out at night for free, which was fantastic. It was the time of the Jannie de Beers, Osterans, Snarkodrotsky's, Joost. So those were my guinea pigs when I was learning and when I was working. And I think they got used to me. They used to start asking for me, so I used to work more. And then Kamehameha called me in one day, and we sat down when I was finished studying, and he said, would you like the job full time? And I was with him for 6 years. So I was their full-time massage therapist at the Bulls for 6 years, and subsequently moved on to Boland for a very short stint, and to Japan for another short stint. And then I joined the Springboks for 8 years. And I stopped 2018, 2017. I still work a little bit on the Super Rugby teams and the Pro 14. And then I got a call from Gary Gold to say, "Are you ready to join the Eagles?" And I did.
Yeah, what a great trajectory as well. And Kamehameha, incidentally, as you know, is heading up the Houston SaberCats in Major League Rugby in the US. So it's amazing. Good people in rugby find their way around and jump from great opportunity to the next one, which is so awesome.
Fantastic. I'm so glad they're going to get a bit of his knowledge as well, because he has so much knowledge to give, and he's still so passionate about the game. I know a few times he's kind of said, "I'm going to stop," and I always laugh and I'm like, "You're not going to stop." So I'm very glad a team like that is going to get his benefit of his knowledge.
Yeah, same, exactly. Now let's talk a bit about the sports you played growing up. What were your favorite sports?
Ironically, I'm one of those who was more of, I come from an arty kind of family. So all the arts were more where I come from. So I was more of a yoga, and I still do. I'm a yoga fan. I do yoga, I do yoga teacher training, and I do Pilates. But that was more what I did. I love watching cricket and rugby and all of those things. But yeah, I'm more the sit on a mountaintop, meditate and do yoga kind of things, which in a way is quite good, because I'm always calm for them, and they know with me they're going to get someone calm, except during the game. That's another story.
Okay, let's talk about working on those games. What's the difference for you when you're working with a sevens team versus working with a 15s team?
So I've worked more with the 15s team, but I did spend a little bit of time with the sevens when I was earlier on in my career. And I think with sevens, it's just so fast. It's speed, it's explosion, it's endurance. And those guys, because there's such a short turnaround between games, they really have to look out for muscle fatigue and cramping, because they build up a lot of lactic acid. So for me with them, it's basically just working out that lactic acid, just trying to keep them on the field from cramping, all that happening. Whereas with 15s, it's more about you go on tour, you have a tour, you're prepared for it. Those guys, it's a lot of collisions, a lot of intense physicality. So it's the bumps, the bruises, the spasms, trying to keep their bodies, I want to say, loose enough to get out onto the field every day and keep them in as little pain as possible, so that they can actually go do what they do at their peak.
Yeah, exactly. When you do a brilliant job of that, which is so great. Now, okay, last one for you. Do you have a funny moment or an embarrassing story you could share from any tours? And you don't have to mention any names.
Team has its characters. I mean, like in the USA team, we have an amazing singer, Paul CK, and we always try to get him to sing us. He does love songs beautifully. And I mean, in the Springboks, it was Trevor Nyakani, who his dancing is renowned. But
yes.
If I think, I'll give you one from, let's say, each of the three teams that I've worked with. The Bulls, many, many years ago, we were on a tour. We were going to Namibia, and we were on an aeroplane, and I happened to be seated next to an American guy. And I quite liked him, and we started chatting, and he was explaining American football to me, and I was enjoying it. And the next thing, these two forwards turned around from the seats in front of me with their arms crossed over the seats, looking at him, and just said, "Is this guy worrying you?" Didn't say another word to me the entire flight, got off that flight so quickly, and I never saw him again. So can be bodyguards too much, but that was very sweet, and that was my Bulls players. A lovely one from the Springboks. It was during the 2011 World Cup in New Zealand. We'd gone to a Maori village to meet the elders and just kind of have a different kind of experience, and they'd prepared for us, and we were all sitting there just thinking we were going to meet everybody. And the next thing, we heard this rumbling from over the hill, and about 100 Maori men in just loincloths came over the hill doing the haka, which was quite something to see. And then they stopped and, almost as a challenge, kind of said, "And now? And you?" And I think we all thought, "Oh my goodness." And one of our guys had the foresight to stand up, and he started singing Shoshaloza, and he knew all the words. So he started singing, and everyone else started standing up and just doing what they could as well. And it was so beautiful and so well done that when we finished, they actually gave us a standing ovation. So that was quite special. That was one of those special moments.
Oh, that's amazing. That's so rare. You're ever going to find two cultures like that coming together so beautifully in rugby. Oh, I love that, Dals.
It was special. It was. It actually gives goosebumps still if I think about it. The Americans, I'll never forget my first tour in 2018. I'd met them in Spain, and we'd stayed at a beautiful hotel in San Sebastian. And from there, we went to Romania. And that was quite a different experience. From a beautiful setting to Romania, which the countryside, I'm sure, is beautiful, but we were staying what seemed like across the road from a nuclear plant or something. So it wasn't great. And we happened to be there the same time as the World or the Eastern European Wrestling Championships. And these guys stayed on our floor. So they would come back after their competitions completely drunk, and they would practice their moves in the hallways. And we basically all would close our doors and just hope that we would get through the night. We didn't sleep so well that week. So yeah, that's experience.
Oh, that's amazing. I love the stories and background. So brilliant. As you said, there's always some great moments with rugby tourists. Dals, I want to thank you so much for joining us on the Rugby Hive and learning more about the amazing work you're doing with Team USA and your history in the sport and helping so many different sides. Definitely one of the unsung heroes in team sport, that's for sure.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Dallen.